Hello and welcome to Shortcut Up CNC. This is the second video on creating a wave panel. We're going to go a little more into detail on how to create this. A refresher, you got this wave panel. The wave is down inside the grooves here. It's not across the top of the panel. It's down inside, which makes it a little complicated in some ways, and you can't completely do it in VCarve that I know of, Pro that is, but you can do it in Aspire by creating the wave pattern first, and then assigning that, making that a model in Aspire, and then attaching the or extruding, I should say, the grooves off of that wave pattern. In Aspire, it can be done, but as a whole, it cannot be done in VCarve Pro. You need to have a model created and import the model into VCarve Pro, and then add your grooves or vectors for the grooves, and you cut the grooves by projecting the grooves to the model. And we're going to show you a little bit of that when we get there. So let's start off by making sure we're on sheet 1. And we're going to go ahead and delete this toolpath while we're over here. And then we're going to delete everything associated. Let's see, highlight everything associated with the sheet 1 delete key. All right, and then we'll go over here and we'll delete the empty, and I no longer need my alternating endpoints, so I don't need that. And it took it off of sheet 2, so we'll have to reapply them later on that. All right, we're going to go over here to sheet 3. It's where I have the contour vector where I created it. And we're going to make sure it's centered to the material board, which it is. And of course, I'm going to recreate this, showing you how to create it. So let's move it up a bit. And then we're going to start bringing in some guides to help us. First, we want to bring a guide in from the outside edge here. Yep, unhighlight that. Okay, now we can move guides. All right, and I right click on the guide. I go relative to guide. I want four, let's see, there's 12, there's four, yeah, four of them. 4 times 12 is 48 inches. Okay, so number of 4, 12 inches across. And I want to leave this as a positive. If I put a negative in front of it, it'll go this way. Now, if you put this in the center, you can go say 2 in one direction, 2 in the other, just by changing from a positive to a negative. But in this case, we want 4. We want to go in the positive direction, and we say create. And there we have our 4 vectors, and you notice they're lined up to the centers and the ends of the original vector that I created. Now we'll go and grab some horizontal, and somewhere along here is the center. There it is. When you drag it, it lights up with little boxes on each end. So that's the vertical center of the panel. All right. Now I want to do this by right clicking on it, and I only need one copy going in one direction, one copy going in another direction. So let's change that. And I can also just type a 1 in there and be done with it. And we want to go, let's see, the material thickness is 0.75. Half of it would be 0.375. So we create one going in the positive direction. And now we'll create one going in the negative direction from that same guide. Oops, I closed it. So we need to go back in here. It helps to zoom because you don't know which guide you're grabbing a hold of. And we say relative 375. I want to go in the negative direction. Create the guide. There we go. Now we back off using the mouse wheel. And we'll, okay, please close in, and we'll delete that particular guide in the center. You can right click delete it, or you can just drag it to the top of the screen and it'll go away right up here. All right, so this should be 0.75. A quick check on that. 7501, close enough. All right, now we got our vectors aligned where we can take and make the contour going between here. We start at the bottom, go across to the other side here, and we'll come zoom in a bit, and I want to go just below, let's say, the crosshair section. Boom. And we close that, and we leave it highlighted, and we're going to do an array copy. We want to change the columns to 4. We want one row, and we want to change this to 12 inches. And we say copy. There we have our 4 going across. We close that. We go up here and we say delete all guides. We no longer need them. Now we need to take and join those 4 vectors together as one complete vector. It's still going to be an open vector, but it's all joined together. It's no longer 4 individual copies. Now we'll take and we'll go to the fillet, normal fillet, 3 inches, and we're going to change the contour here. You notice when I'm away from it, there's no check mark. I try to do it anywhere on here, it's going to say no. It's going to have an X. Now it's got a check mark. I can go ahead and change the contour. Don't go a little tighter, that way you'll be able to see it move. There. Now it looks very much like the original vector that I created. We can go ahead and delete the original vector. And this is what I used to create the vector for the model. And so we don't have the model now. So we're going to go ahead and import the model. The model is called wave panel number 2. Okay, now there's your model. It's laid up in there just any old way. Or they say it as designed, but I don't think so. Okay, so I know I changed this to back, thinking of it, and then it moved. And you could move these on different ones, and you could see what they do until you find the right action that you want. There, I got the back side, it's upside down. So all I need to do is go the opposite of that and it's back. Now you notice it's no longer, it's half the panel, and this is your outline of your material board, and these are your axis locations. So I center it to the model. I'd make a note of my 7181 because I need that. That's your Z axis. I need that for the next position in import. It's for setting the plane, the zero plane. I want to set the zero plane all the way to the bottom. There it is, 7181. That's the thickness. So the plane has been moved. If I take and rotate this, you'll see the plane is at the bottom of the panel. It is no longer at the top. See, we'll split the difference. See, now it's all the way up across the top of it. So we slide it back down. We make sure our number is 7181, and we import the model, and it'll come into the 3D view as the model, created model. There we have our model of the wave pattern of the panel. Now we need to go and create our vectors. So we're going to take this vector, the contour vector, move it up here at the top, move it out of the way. We don't need it anymore. We go to a polyline and we make sure the panel is visible. And we draw a line straight on down, and then we hit the space bar to disconnect. And then you close that. We have our vector for the, and now we do an array copy of that vector, but you got to highlight it. And you want one row, which is, this is considered a row going across all these. And the columns, it's going to be how many columns you want across here. You know, one column, two columns, three columns. We want a total of 64. And I want to change this to 0.75. I memorized that. You can try different numbers until you get the actual spacing that you want. And you just keep doing copies and then undo, copy, and you get where you want to be. Now that looks pretty good, but it's not quite centered. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close this, leave them highlighted, and I'm going to center it in the vertical, well, let's see, horizontal direction. That's this way, right, across. That's what I wanted. Now it looks more centered. Okay, now while they're still highlighted, we can go ahead and create our toolpath. And of course, it's going to ask on the material setup because we have now a model in the setup. And what they're asking for here is to double check everything, your material thickness, your XY datum location, that's okay. The material surface, that's okay. This is the big picture right here, the big thing. It's showing that it's got a little excess material, and they're wanting to know what you want to do with that little bit of excess material. See, it's a model's only 7181, but we got 0.75 thickness of our material. But this is the bottom, this is the top. So it's giving a little extra to the bottom. So that's what I want. Now, if you bring it all the way the other way, it's going to cut it. Now, it's going to cut into that first, and then it'll actually cut into the model. So in other words, you've given more up top, and it cuts it away. I want that as part of the actual panel. I want to leave that. So I say okay to this, and now it gives me my tool path. We can go ahead and change this to 0 and hit the tab or enter key. I want to use an end mill, upcut end mill, which is already selected. I want to go on the machine vectors. Climb cut will be fine. And another thing I want to note before I go into the tool path altogether is I want to go to the node and see how these nodes are working. Ah, they're all going in the same direction. So what's going to happen is it's going to go down and then it's going to go raise the Z, come all the way back and start again here. I don't want that. I don't want that. So what I want to use is a gadget. It's called alternating endpoints. I want to alternate the endpoints. Now you see, there's your start, there's your stop, there's your start, there's your stop. So now they've been alternated. Now I can create my tool path that I want. I've already set up the machine setup or material setup so it doesn't come up again. So it doesn't accept the 0. You got to have a 1 in there. All right, now we got our end mill on the vector. And this is the big key item right here. Project tool path onto the 3D model. If you don't have that checked, it's not going to cut properly. So we say calculate, and there you see, let's see if we can bring this in a little better. All right, there you see the tool path is going up and down along the wave pattern, the model. So if I say preview that tool path, there you have it. It's created the grooves, and it's very close here because our vector is very close to the top. So you may want to back that off a little more when you create your vector. That way these grooves will be a little deeper. But right now they're light. See, they're very light. So when you create your contour vector, it's important to make sure you don't go all the way to the top on that cross-section vector, profile vector. So there you have that's panel 1, sheet 1. And of course it's showing sheet 3 here, but anyway, I don't know what's up with that. I'll have to check on that later. But anyway, we created our panel and it's identical to this here, or very close. It may not be identical, but it's very close to what that is. So there you have it, folks. The first panel using a model, and then you set up your vectors to do a project on the tool path, or project the tool path onto the 3D model. Thank you for watching Shark Cut Up CNC.